I found a men's sock in my girlfriend's bed, and she smirked. Don't make this weird, it's just a sock. I said, got it, compared her story to her roommate's, and started watching her late shifts until one hidden message revealed. I've been dating my girlfriend Tessa, 24F, for about 8 months now. Things have been pretty solid overall. She works at a medical office doing admin stuff, and I'm a warehouse clerk at an electronics distribution center while finishing up community college part-time. We don't live together, but I spend a lot of time at her place since she has her own room in a shared apartment with her longtime friend Jace. So here's the situation. Last Thursday, I was over at Tessa's place while she was at work. She'd mentioned earlier in the week that her room was getting messy, and she didn't have time to deal with it, so I figured I'd surprise her by tidying up a bit. I know that sounds weird to some people, but we've been together long enough that this kind of thing is normal for us. I've done it before and she's always appreciated it. I was vacuuming around her bed when I noticed something wedged between the bed frame and her nightstand. I pulled it out and it was a men's sock. Not mine. I know all my socks, and this definitely wasn't one of them. It was a black athletic sock, size large, a brand I don't wear. My stomach dropped. I just stood there holding this sock for like 5 minutes trying to think of logical explanations. Maybe it got mixed up in laundry somehow. Maybe it was from her brother visiting, but her brother lives 3 states away and hasn't visited in months. Maybe from her dad. But her parents have never been to this apartment. When Tessa got home that evening, I asked her about it as calmly as I could. I didn't want to come across as accusatory because maybe there really was a simple explanation. Her face went completely blank for a second. Then she laughed it off and said, "Oh, that's probably from my ex. I dated this guy like a year ago before we met. Sometimes old stuff just turns up when you clean." That seemed reasonable at first, but then I thought about it more. If it was from an ex a year ago, wouldn't she have found it during cleaning at some point in the past 8 months? Her room isn't that big. And why was it specifically wedged between the bed and nightstand, like it had fallen there recently? I didn't push it that night because I didn't want to start a fight over a sock, but the explanation kept bothering me. Then yesterday, her roommate Jace was over when I brought it up again, just casually. I said something like, "Hey, remember that sock I found? It was in a weird spot." Jace jumped in immediately and said, "Oh yeah, that was from my Tinder hookup last week. We were hanging out in Tessa's room because my room was a mess, and he threw his sock at me playfully during our conversation. It must have fallen behind the bed. I forgot to grab it before he left." I just nodded and said, "Okay," but inside I was freaking out, because that story was completely different from what Tessa told me. Tessa said it was from an old ex. Jace said it was from her Tinder hookup last week. When Jace left the room, I asked Tessa why she didn't mention the Tinder guy story when I first asked. She got defensive and said she forgot about that and didn't think it was important, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But here's what's really bugging me. If it really was from Jace's Tinder hookup and it happened just last week, wouldn't that be the first thing Tessa would remember? Why would her immediate response be that it was from her ex a year ago? The stories don't match, and neither of them seem to realize that I noticed. I've been sitting on this for 2 days now, and I can't stop thinking about it. I feel like I'm being lied to, but I also feel crazy for obsessing over a single sock. Maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe there's some explanation I'm not seeing. But then I started thinking about other things. Tessa has been working a lot of overtime lately. At least, that's what she tells me. She'll text me saying she has to work late, but she works at a medical office that closes at 6 p.m. When I asked her about it, she said she stays late to help with paperwork and filing. That seemed normal enough. But now I'm wondering if she's really at work during those times. I haven't said anything else to her because I don't want to be that boyfriend who accuses his girlfriend of cheating over a sock, but something feels wrong. The story changed. The timeline doesn't make sense, and she got defensive when I asked follow-up questions. Am I overthinking this? Is this just normal relationship stuff, and I'm being paranoid? Or should I be concerned? I don't know what to do here. Part of me wants to just drop it and trust her. But another part of me can't shake the feeling that I'm being played. What would you do? Update 1. I posted a few days ago about finding a men's sock in my girlfriend's room and getting 2 different stories about where it came from. A lot of you told me to pay attention to other inconsistencies and trust my gut. I took that advice, and I wish I hadn't, because what I'm finding is making me sick. First, let me address the people who said I was overreacting. I get it. A sock seems like such a small thing to fixate on. But it wasn't really about the sock itself. It was about the stories not matching. And now I'm seeing that the sock was just the tip of the iceberg. After I made that post, I started paying more attention to the little things. Not in a creepy surveillance way, but just being more aware of what Tessa was telling me versus what was actually happening. On Tuesday, Tessa texted me around 4 p.m. saying she had to work late and wouldn't be free until around 9 p.m. She said they had a bunch of patient files to organize and her boss asked her to stay. I said no problem and told her I'd see her tomorrow instead. Here's where it gets interesting. On Wednesday, I stopped by her workplace to surprise her with lunch. I do this sometimes and she's always been cool with it. While I was there, I ran into one of her coworkers, Mara. We've met a few times before at work events, and she's always been friendly. Mara mentioned how nice it was to see me and said something like, "Hey, did Tessa enjoy her evening off yesterday?" She left right at 5 p.m. and seemed excited about something. I just smiled and nodded like I knew what she was talking about, but inside my heart was pounding. Tessa told me she worked until 9 p.m. on Tuesday, but her coworker clearly saw her leave at 5 p.m. That's 4 hours unaccounted for. When I got home, I thought about how to bring this up without sounding like I was checking up on her. So I just casually asked, "How was the late shift yesterday? Did you get all those files organized?" Tessa didn't even hesitate. She launched into this whole story about how tedious it was and how her back hurt from standing so long and how she didn't get home until almost 9:30 p.m. because she stopped for gas. She lied right to my face, smoothly, confidently, like she'd practiced it. I didn't confront her right then because I wanted to see what else I could find out. But later that night, I asked a few more questions about Tuesday. Just small things like, "Was anyone else staying late with you?" And, "Did your boss at least order dinner for you guys?" She got irritated. Said I was asking too many questions and that she was tired of talking about work. Then she flipped it on me and asked why I was being so controlling and suspicious lately. Said I've been acting weird ever since I found that sock and that I need to learn to trust her. That word, trust. She used it like a weapon. She went on about how she's never given me a reason not to trust her, how she's always been faithful, how she can't believe I'm spying on her by talking to her coworkers. I tried to explain that I wasn't spying, I was just saying hi to Mara while dropping off lunch, but Tessa wasn't hearing it. She said if I couldn't trust her, maybe we shouldn't be together. Just like that. Made it sound like I was the problem for noticing inconsistencies in her stories. I backed off because I didn't want to escalate things, but I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the timeline, the sock, the work schedule lies, the way she immediately went on the defensive and tried to make me feel guilty for asking questions. Then yesterday, I went over to her place to grab a hoodie I'd left there. Tessa was at work, or so she said, and Jace was home. I went into Tessa's room to look for my hoodie, and while I was searching her closet, I found something. Actually, I found multiple things. Hidden in the back corner of her closet, behind some shoe boxes, there was a phone charger. Not mine, not Tessa's. She has an iPhone. This was an Android charger. There was also a stick of men's deodorant, Old Spice. I don't use Old Spice. And there was a men's hoodie, size large, from a brand I don't own. My hands were shaking when I pulled these items out. I just sat on her floor staring at them. This wasn't old stuff from an ex. This was recent. These items were hidden, deliberately placed where I wouldn't normally look. Someone else has been in her room. Recently. Regularly enough to leave multiple items behind. Items that he clearly intended to come back for. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I put it all back exactly how I found it. I didn't want to tip anyone off that I knew. When Tessa got home later, I didn't say anything. I acted completely normal. We watched TV, ordered takeout. Everything was fine on the surface, but I was screaming inside. I don't know what to do with this information. Part of me wants to confront her immediately with the photos and demand the truth. But another part of me knows that she'll just lie again, or flip it on me, or come up with some explanation that I won't be able to disprove in the moment. Reddit. I think my girlfriend is cheating on me. I think the sock was exactly what I feared it was. I think the work schedule lies are covering for time she's spending with someone else. And I think her roommate knows about it and is helping her cover it up. But I don't have hard proof yet, just circumstantial evidence and conflicting stories. What's my next move here? Update 2. This is all happening so fast I can barely keep up. I need to get this out because I don't have anyone else to talk to about this, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. After my last update, a bunch of you suggested I talk to the roommate Jace directly and ask specific questions about her Tinder hookup story, the logic being that if she was making it up on the spot to cover for Tessa, she wouldn't have details ready, and the story would fall apart under basic questioning. So yesterday I went over to Tessa's apartment when I knew Tessa would be at work. Jace was home, and I asked if we could talk for a minute. She seemed confused but said sure. I sat down and said, "Hey, I wanted to ask you about that sock incident from last week, the one from your Tinder guy." Jace nodded slowly. "Yeah, what about it? What was his name?" I asked. She hesitated. Just for a second, but I caught it. Tyler. Tyler what? I don't know his last name. It was just a hookup, she said, getting a little defensive. Okay, fair enough, I said. What does Tyler look like? Another pause. Tall. Brown hair. Normal-looking guy. What does he do for work? I don't know, we didn't really talk about that stuff. Where did you guys meet up before coming back here? We matched on Tinder and just met at a bar first. Which bar? I don't remember the name. I kept going. You said he threw his sock at you playfully. What were you guys doing that led to him taking off his sock in Tessa's room? Jace's face went red. I don't know. We were just hanging out. Why are you interrogating me about this? Because your story doesn't make sense, I said. Why would a Tinder hookup be in Tessa's room instead of yours? Why would he take off his sock? Why wouldn't you remember any details about a guy you brought home just last week? She stood up. I don't have to answer these questions. You're being really weird right now. I found other stuff, I said. In Tessa's closet. A phone charger, deodorant, a hoodie. All men's stuff that isn't mine. Want to tell me another story about that? Jace's face went pale. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she said, You need to talk to Tessa about this. I'm not getting in the middle of your relationship drama. You're already in the middle of it, I said. You lied for her. That first story about the sock being from an old ex came from Tessa. Then you jumped in with a completely different story about your Tinder guy. You didn't even coordinate your lies properly. She told me I needed to leave. Said I was making her uncomfortable and that she was going to call Tessa. I left, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The story was crumbling. About an hour later, I got a call from Tessa. She was furious. Said I ambushed her roommate and made Jace feel unsafe in her own home. Said I was harassing her friends and that my behavior was unacceptable. I tried to explain that I just asked Jace some questions about the sock story, but Tessa wasn't listening. She said I was being controlling and paranoid, and that she was seriously reconsidering this relationship. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Maybe you planted that stuff in my closet yourself. Maybe you're manufacturing this whole thing so you have an excuse to break up with me. I wouldn't put it past you at this point. I was speechless. She was actually trying to claim that I planted evidence in her own apartment, evidence that I found by accident while looking for my own hoodie. I asked her directly, Are you cheating on me? She scoffed. I can't believe you're even asking me that. After everything we've been through, you really think I would do that to you? Then explain the sock, I said. Explain why you and Jace told different stories. Explain the phone charger and the deodorant and the hoodie in your closet. Explain why Mara saw you leave work at 5 p.m. when you told me you worked until 9 p.m. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Tessa said, I think we need to take a break. You're clearly dealing with some trust issues that I can't help you with. Call me when you're ready to act like an adult. And she hung up on me. I was furious. I was hurt, but I was also more convinced than ever that I was right. She didn't deny anything specific. She just attacked me and then ran away from the conversation. I couldn't let it go. I needed proof. Real proof that couldn't be explained away or turned around on me. So last night I did something I'm not proud of. Tessa has an iPad that she keeps at her place. mostly for watching Netflix in bed. She's logged into all her accounts on it. A few months ago, she told me her passcode in case I ever needed to use it, and I still remembered it. I knew she was working a real shift yesterday because I'd confirmed it independently. So I went over to the apartment while she was gone. Jace wasn't home either. I let myself in, I have a key, and went straight for the iPad on Tessa's nightstand. My hands were shaking as I typed in the passcode. Part of me hoped I wouldn't find anything. Part of me hoped I was wrong about all of this, and that there would be some innocent explanation. But I wasn't wrong. I opened her messages and there it was, a conversation with someone named Rylan. Pages and pages of texts going back months. Since before we even hit our 6-month anniversary, the messages started friendly enough. Hey stranger, long time no talk. That kind of thing. But they escalated quickly, flirting, reminiscing about their past, making plans to meet up. I scrolled through with my stomach churning. There were messages from Tuesday, the day she said she worked late. Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll come by around 6. Colt won't know. Messages from other dates too, coordinating schedules, talking about how to avoid getting caught. Rylan asking if she was going to break up with me. Tessa saying, not yet, timing isn't right. I took screenshots of everything. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the iPad. Then I found messages between Tessa and Jace. Tessa asking Jace to cover for her if I asked questions. Jace agreeing to say the sock was from her Tinder hookup. Them laughing about how I bought it at first. I felt like I was going to throw up. I put the iPad back exactly where I found it and left the apartment. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, just staring at my phone, looking at the screenshots, trying to process what I'd just learned. My girlfriend has been cheating on me for months, with someone named Rylan. Her roommate has been actively helping her cover it up. Everything was a lie. The overtime, the late shifts, the reassurances that I could trust her, all of it. I don't know what to do with this information. I have proof now, undeniable proof, but I also feel completely destroyed. 8 months of my life, 8 months of thinking I was building something real with someone. And the worst part? In some of the messages, Rylan asked her about me, asked if she loved me, and Tessa responded, he's sweet but it's not serious. You're who I actually want to be with. I was never real to her. I was just convenient, a placeholder. I haven't confronted her yet with the screenshots. I don't even know how to begin that conversation. Part of me wants to just ghost her and never speak to her again. Another part wants to send her the screenshots with no explanation and block her on everything. What's the right move here? I have the proof. I know the truth. But now I have to figure out what to do with it. Final update. I need to close the loop on this whole nightmare because I'm done. Completely done. And I want to thank everyone who gave me advice and validation when I felt like I was going crazy. After my last update where I found the messages with Rylan on Tessa's iPad, I spent about a day trying to figure out how to handle it. I went back and forth between just ghosting her and confronting her directly. I was hurt and angry and honestly just exhausted. In the end, I decided I needed to confront her face to face. Not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to see her reaction when she realized I had proof. I needed to watch her try to explain her way out of something that was completely unexplainable. So yesterday afternoon I texted Tessa and said we needed to talk. She responded with something like, "Are you ready to apologize for your behavior?" I didn't respond to that. Just told her I was coming over at 6 p.m. and that we needed to talk in person. When I got to her apartment, she had this attitude right from the start. Arms crossed, standing in the doorway like she was doing me a favor by even letting me in. Jace was conveniently not home. I didn't waste time with small talk. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots, and handed it to her. "Who's Rylan?" I asked. Her face went white, like all the blood just drained out of her completely. She took the phone from my hand and started scrolling through the screenshots. Her hands were shaking. "Where did you get these?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter?" I said. "Who's Rylan?" She sat down on the couch. For a long moment she just stared at the phone. Then she started crying. Not like dramatic sobbing, just quiet tears running down her face. "It's not what it looks like," she said. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. It looks like you've been cheating on me for months with your ex-hookup buddy while lying about working overtime and getting your roommate to cover for you. Which part am I misunderstanding? She tried to hand my phone back, but I didn't take it. I wanted her to sit with what she'd done. Rylan and I have history, she finally said. We were friends with benefits before I met you. When we started dating, I cut things off with him completely. But a few months ago, he reached out and we started talking again. It was just talking at first, just catching up. The messages show it was more than talking, I said. She nodded. It escalated. I didn't mean for it to happen, but we started meeting up. Nothing physical at first, I swear. We were just hanging out. But then you started cheating with him, I finished for her. She flinched. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me. I was trying to stay calm, but my voice was getting louder. You've been lying to me for months. You made me feel crazy for noticing inconsistencies. You accused me of being controlling and paranoid when I was just asking basic questions. You even claimed I planted evidence in your closet, and you didn't want to hurt me. I know, she said. I know I fucked up. I should have just ended things with you when Rylan and I reconnected. But I didn't know what I wanted and I thought I could figure it out. Figure it out? I said. You were stringing me along while you decided which one of us you wanted more. She didn't deny it. I pulled up one specific screenshot and showed it to her. The one where Rylan asked if she loved me and she said I wasn't serious, that he was who she actually wanted to be with. Were you ever planning to choose me? I asked. Or was I just the backup plan? She was full on crying now. I care about you, Colt. I really do. But Rylan and I have this connection that I can't explain. We have history. And when he came back into my life, I realized I never really got over him. There it was. The truth I'd been avoiding. I was never the real relationship. I was the consolation prize while she figured out if she could get back with the guy she actually wanted. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. She wiped her eyes. I don't know. I kept thinking the feelings for Rylan would fade and I could just commit to us. But they didn't fade. They got stronger. The messages said you were planning to break up with me after Christmas, I said. Why wait? She looked genuinely ashamed for the first time. I didn't want to ruin the holidays for you. That sounds stupid now, I know. But I thought if I could just wait a few more weeks, it would be easier. Easier for who? I asked. You were going to let me buy you Christmas presents and spend time with your family and keep believing we had a future together, all while you were already checked out and sleeping with someone else. She had no response to that. I stood up to leave. I'd heard enough. But before I left, I had one more question. Does Rylan know you were planning to break up with me after Christmas? Does he know you've been telling me you love me while telling him he's the one you actually want? She didn't answer. I'll take that as a no, I said. Good luck with that. I walked out, got in my car, drove home, and I thought that was the end of it. But then this morning, I got a message from Jace. Yes, the roommate who helped cover everything up. She said she needed to talk to me and that it was important. I almost didn't respond, but curiosity got the better of me. I called her. Colt, I need to tell you something, Jace said. She sounded upset. Something Tessa doesn't know I know. Okay, I said. Tessa has been telling Rylan that you're just a temporary thing, that you're not serious, and that she was planning to end it soon. But that's not the full story. What do you mean? She's been telling Rylan that since the beginning, Jace said. Like, from the first month you guys were together. She told him that you were just someone to pass the time with until she figured out if she and Rylan could make it work for real. My stomach dropped. The entire relationship? Yeah, Jace said quietly. She never intended for it to be serious with you. You were always the backup. I only found out about it a few weeks ago and I've felt sick about it ever since. I shouldn't have lied for her. I'm sorry. I asked Jace why she was telling me this now. Because Rylan found out about everything, she said. About how Tessa was still with you, about how she was lying to both of you, about her plan to wait until after Christmas. He went through her phone last night after you left and saw all the messages between her and me about covering things up. He dumped her, told her she was a manipulative liar and that he wanted nothing to do with her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So she lost both of us. Yeah, Jace said. And it gets worse for her. I'm moving out at the end of the month. I can't afford the apartment on my own, and neither can she. And Rylan apparently told some of her co-workers about what happened because he knows one of them from somewhere. Her work people all know now. I should have felt some satisfaction hearing that there were consequences for Tessa's actions. But mostly, I just felt empty. Why are you telling me all this? I asked Jace. Because you deserved better, she said. And because I feel like shit for helping her lie to you. You were nothing but nice to me, and I threw you under the bus for someone who doesn't even value loyalty. I'm sorry. I thanked her for telling me and hung up. So that's where things stand now. Tessa lost Rylan. She's losing her apartment. Her co-workers know what she did. And she's facing the consequences of playing two people at once. As for me, I'm hurt. I'm angry. But I'm also relieved that I found out when I did. 8 months is a long time to invest in someone, but it's nothing compared to what it could have been if I'd ignored that sock and convinced myself I was just being paranoid.